Hey everyone, welcome to week 4, our final week of our 2 Timothy Bible study. Brooke is going to be taking over from here. She just wanted me to talk a little bit.
I told her I talked too much last week.
So I'm going to start us out.
That was a great introduction.
Handing it back over to you.
Okay, so this is our last week in 2 Timothy, and I was just telling Megan, I feel like we've talked a lot about Timothy because, this book was wrote to Timothy. But in this last chapter, I can't help but think of the life of Paul. Because in the introduction of chapter 4, he says, I solemnly urge you in the presence of God and Christ Jesus, who will someday judge the living and the dead, when he appears to set up his kingdom. Preach the word, be prepared, whether the time is favorable or not. And then he says, patiently correct, rebuke, and encourage your people with good teaching. So I feel like he's winding it down. He's summing up what he's been saying throughout this whole letter is just keep persevering, Timothy. Hang in there, be strong, be courageous. And then he talks about in this, I think it's verse 6. This is where I want to focus. He says this, as for me, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. The time of my death is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. And now the prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the day of his return. Oh my goodness, Paul is coming to the end of his life, and he knows it. And I feel like he's telling Timothy, I'm old, you're young, my life is almost over, you're right in the prime of your life, and I just want you to give everything you've got. My life has been poured out as an offering to God. And I want to share with you a quick story about something that happened to me this past week. Stephen had to go check on a job in Charlotte. And it was for a church who is going to build a new location. It's a rather large church, but the pastor was there, or actually the bishop was there. And Stephen and I talked to him for a while, actually a couple of hours, if you know me and Stephen. He was such a nice man. And about 2 hours into our conversation, this man's wife calls. This is how he answers the phone. Hey honey, I'm here with the Caldwells, and they just shared with me their testimony, and I just want to know, do you have a word for Sister Caldwell? And I'm thinking, this woman has never met me in her life. What is she? I couldn't imagine Stephen answering the phone like that to me. Actually, I could imagine Stephen doing that. But I was just thinking, oh, this poor woman, but she didn't miss a beat. She says, yes, now what's your name? And the gentleman turns the phone towards me, and I said, my name's Brooke. And she said, where are you from, Brooke? I said, I'm from Lincolnton. She then starts to give me this prophetic word over my life. But one phrase she kept repeating over and over was this, give God everything, Brooke. Give him everything. Don't hold anything back. Just give him everything. And I was blown away because immediately after that, and this whole week I've been thinking, I want to give everything. I want to give everything. And then as I read this, it was no coincidence. Paul's saying, I poured out my life. I've given him everything. And now there awaits for me a prize. Then I didn't read the very last part of this verse in 7 or 8. I think it's 8. And now the prize awaits me, the crown of righteousness which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on the day of his return. Here it is. And the prize is not just for me, but for all who eagerly look forward to his appearing. There is a prize for each of us. And I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, oh my goodness, I wish I would have gave more. I wish I would have just poured myself out more for God. Not that it's going to make him love me more, but there's a scripture in Revelation where it talks about Jesus is going to, or God's going to wipe away every tear from our eye. And I can't help but wonder if that's going to be part of our crying, could be that we could see what would have been possible, that was possible for us if we'd had the faith to believe or the courage to step out and do the things that he's called us to do. So that's what was highlighted to me this week. And I hope I don't forget ever, because I want that to be on the forefront of my mind. Give him everything. And Megan, I think you had mentioned too before we started that also stuck out to you in this chapter.
Yeah, and just while you were talking about that too, it was like really standing out to me. A lot of times we look at the things that we're presented with. There's something sometimes that'll pop into our mind whenever we're with someone or we're about to do something. You're like, oh, that wasn't really a big deal. You know, like, I don't really have to do that. I just won't do it this time or something like that, you know.
You're talking like praying for somebody
praying for someone or talking to them about something that you feel like God's wanting you to talk to them about. Or, and then you don't do it, but you know, like, the little things that we're like don't matter here because they might not matter here as much. We think, although I'm sure it would matter to the person if we actually stuck with what God was telling us, but you know, there is a prize for those things that you don't see physically presented before you at the moment, but you know, like all those things too.
Yeah. And what would it hurt?
And I love that song, You're Worthy of It All.
Oh.
Every time that song, it's like, even whenever we're building up all these prizes, I mean, sometimes I feel like it's a little greedy to think about. You know,
the rewards waiting for us.
Like, I don't know, maybe it's not, but you know.
That way we'll have something to give.
It does motivate you.
Yeah, it does.
But every time we sing that song and it says, all the saints
gather around
his throne and cast their crowns before the throne. It reminds me every single time. It's like everything that you do on earth, you're building up prizes, treasures, crowns in heaven. And once you get to heaven and you see Jesus, you'll realize that all those crowns that you build up, they don't matter up there. You're wanting to build them up because the saints and elders are casting them to his feet. They're throwing everything away that they worked for.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're wanting to do it because they want something to give him because he's so good and so righteous. And like, it just gets me every time thinking about how we think that we just want the prizes. We want the prizes for ourselves whenever we get to heaven. And once you get there, can you imagine the love that is felt and how that could make you feel to just be like, okay, everything I worked for and hard for, I just want to give it back.
Yeah.
It's like a complete circle. God's made it. It's like he gives you this and you give him that and he gives you, it's so good.
Oh, he's so good.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Because that's true. We work so hard and he's like, you get this prize. You're working for this prize. And when you get there and you see Jesus, you're like, it belongs to you.
Yeah.
This belongs to you.
And just the love that will be felt there. Because you know in your family how you love to give. And then that makes someone want to give back to you. And just like the loving feeling that's there whenever, not even giving like actual gifts, just like be kind, how kindness goes.
Yes.
And how things like that go whenever you're passing it back and forth. And just how much more so that is in heaven.
And really that's what Paul's doing here is he's passed down what was given to him to Timothy. And even on his last few, who knows, days, months, hours, I don't know, he's still telling Timothy, don't quit. And at the very preach in and out of season, be ready no matter where you're at. And that's for us too. We have to be ready wherever we're at home, the grocery store.
Yeah.
Well, it's about the only two places we can be.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. So just
that's a go window.
That's a go. Yes, just be ready and give him everything. Give him everything, because this life is so short. It's so short, and I do want to just mention this last verse because it says the word grace. May the Lord be with your spirit. And may his grace be with all of you. Paul goes through and he gives this farewell, not just to Timothy, but to other people. But I was telling Megan, the word grace here, it's the word grace is used 125 times in the New Testament, and 120 of those times was by Paul. Paul understood grace. I mean, he killed Christians. He killed people. Not only that, he tortured them. I mean, could you imagine being stoned to death? I mean, that's not something that's fast. It's a brutal death. And he understood God's forgiveness and his love and his mercy poured out for him. And so much so that he could call himself pure and holy.
Yeah.
So
just think how God chose him to do that. Like, to be the messenger of his New Testament.
Of grace.
Of covenant. Yeah, his grace covenant. And it could have been anyone.
Yeah.
And he chose Paul.
Oh, wow.
Somebody who persecuted everything he stood for. He turned it completely around, his life completely around. And just the amount of grace Paul understood.
Yes.
Because
he had to.
He had to in order to preach that message.
Yes.
Because, I mean, I couldn't imagine living with yourself after doing something
and
like
maybe
that.
too, that's why he was so bold in it.
Yeah.
He believed it. He felt the difference in his life. Only God could takes away that guilt.
He does.
And he takes away that condemnation.
He does. And he makes you feel worthy in front of him.
Yeah.
I mean, you might feel unworthy in front of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because people can make you feel more unworthy sometimes than God can make. Even being in front of God, the righteous judge.
Yeah.
You can stand before him and worship him with a pure and clean heart. And yet sometimes you might have other people come against you. But he was able to do that and spread that message, knowing that he was clothed in the righteousness of Jesus, as we all are whenever we believe in him.
He just understood. Well, so much so, last week we were talking, he was telling Timothy, don't pay attention to those people who are persecuting you. You stay the course and don't pull back. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to end is remember God's grace, and then just give him everything.
Yeah. That's good, Brooke.
Are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Thank y'all so much for joining us, and we'll stay in touch.
Yep.
Bye.